Welcome back to the New Jersey Morning Show. I'm Mike Favetta along with Cara DeFalco. On Monday, the Gateway Development Commission signed a full funding grant agreement with the Federal Transit Administration for $6.8 billion in federal funding for the Hudson Tunnel Project. Here to talk about the Gateway Development Commission Chief Public Outreach, Stephen Sigmund. Welcome to the show, Stephen. Great news for you to share with us this morning.
Yeah. Thank you for having me, and appreciate the opportunity.
We're very glad you could join us. Now, Stephen, I got to tell you, my career started as a traffic reporter here in New Jersey. I think I've been covering this project for about a decade now.
Yeah.
But so for those of us who have lost track over time, tell us about the project. What does it involve, and why is it so important?
Yeah. No, I'd be glad to. Thanks. So currently, actually, for the last 114 years, there's been only one track in and one track out between New York and New Jersey at the busiest point of the entire Northeast corridor. And that 114-year-old tunnel is doing what any 114-year-old does, and it's gotten old, and it's prone to delays, breakdowns, crumbling. It was inundated with millions of gallons of salt water and Hurricane Sandy, which still affect the electricity. And look, everyone in New Jersey has experienced the effects of this, certainly even in the last couple of weeks, with enormous delays on New Jersey Transit and Amtrak, and those ripple out into the rest of the transit system. As we like to say, if the tunnel gets a cough, the George Washington Bridge catches a cold, right? So what we are doing is finally replacing that 114-year-old tunnel with a brand new 21st century two-track tunnel, and the full rehabilitation of the existing tunnel, so that there will be four good as new tracks that are reliable and safe for the next 100 years.
So this funding is very important for the project. What does the funding grant mean for the project? Can work get started right away?
Yeah, work has already started. We've started work on both sides of the river, in New Jersey on a bridge where the two new tracks will come in under, and in New York on what's called a concrete casing, which is essentially a missing link section between what will be the new tunnel and a connection directly into Penn Station. So what this funding means is that we have the full funding to complete the project, right? To not just do those two initial projects or early work projects, but do the entire 9-mile new tunnel and rehabilitation of the existing tunnel. And that full funding has never existed before. I mean, there have been stops and starts in this project and an earlier version of it, as you were suggesting, for the last 15 years. And we're finally at a point where we have the funding necessary, the work that's going forward, and the work in the pipeline to ensure that this vital project, which is a really critical economic piece for the entire region and for the entire nation. The RPA did a study a couple of years ago that even if one of the existing tubes went down in a planned shutdown for a few years, it would cost the nation's economy $16 billion. And it would add 30 minutes a day to already the most congested commute in the country, and add 2 million tons of carbon into an already overheated atmosphere. So you're talking about a project whose time had come 15 years ago. And finally, we are at a point where we can say this project is going to be delivered and going to get done for the millions of riders who need it.
And that's a staggering figure that you just gave, where you said, even if it was a planned shutdown, I mean, it's almost triple the cost of not doing this thing. And I'm just reading, because it was a federally funded thing, because I know part of the initial project was, does New Jersey pay for it? Does New York pay for it? So I think this has also been helpful in that the federal government's just paying for it.
Well, what's great about it is it was initially designed as a 50-50 split, as you suggest, between the federal government and between the states of New York and New Jersey. The federal government's now picking up 70%, 73 to be exact, percent of the cost, $12 billion in direct grants, which is the largest contribution to a mass transit project in the history of America. And it deserves it because it's that important. The $4 billion local contribution, which is split between the Port Authority, New York, and New Jersey, is done through federal loans that are low interest and that don't have to start being paid back for another 10 years. So really, it's a deal that we can't refuse as a state, and particularly given the importance of the project. I just want to talk for a minute about, I talked about the losses that would happen if we didn't build this project. The gains that you get from building this project are enormous as well. You get in direct 95,000 jobs,
Mm.
$20 billion in economic activity, and even more importantly, a more reliable commute. Getting home and getting to work when you are supposed to get home and get to work, as all of us know who ride through that tunnel now, a 35-minute ride is really a 50-minute ride. And instead,
Mm-hmm.
it will be a 35-minute ride. And most importantly, a mass transit system that works and that functions and that can support a growing region and growing nation and can support a future and can demonstrate that we can build real, important 21st century infrastructure that works for the next 100 years and not just rely on something that our great great grandparents at this point had the foresight to complete. We need to have the foresight to complete these projects so that our great great grandchildren 100 years from now can say, wow, this really served us and served this region and served this nation.
Mm.
Wow, it's really important stuff. Do you think that there have been some lessons learned from other big infrastructure projects, in the city? I know the East River Access, the East Side Access Tunnel was completed, and now it's far easier for people on the other side of the city to commute into Manhattan. Did that play a role in getting this funding secured and kind of making it a case for completing the project?
Yeah, I think all the fact that all of these major infrastructure projects, the airports, have gotten done, played a significant role. I mean, for example, every time I go over the new Tappan Zee Bridge, you think about how did we support or allow the conditions that existed for the last 30 years to exist, and I think that's what will happen when riders start going through the new tunnel. They will not be able to believe that we all endured and allowed the conditions to exist that we've allowed to exist for the last 20 years. But in terms of just direct lessons learned, major infrastructure projects, as all of your viewers know, are prone to delays and cost overruns. And one of the things that we're doing right now, one of the early works projects, was learned from the Boston Big Dig project, which is we are at the bottom of the Hudson River right now. We are working to stabilize the 1,200 feet that runs between on the western side of the river as you get into Manhattan, because like the Big Dig project, the tunnel has to kind of come up at that point and be very close to the bottom of the river. And the consistency of the bottom of the river there is sort of like described as like chocolate pudding. So unless you shore that up with a mix of concrete and soil and water, literally called soilcrete, the tunnel can't get through it. And so that is a lesson that was learned directly from that project, because they had that problem and figured it out by doing this method. We are now doing that method right now, so that when the tunnel boring machines come through, they will be solidified and you won't have to stop the work.
Incredible stuff. Speaking of those delays and things like that, what is the timeline, at least as of right now, for this to be? When do we think we'll see this thing be completed?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, this is a long, hard project. It's really 9 projects all working together to end up with the 9 miles. So it takes 10 years. I mean, this is going to be the new project. The new tunnel will be in service in, we estimate, 2035, and with the full completion of the rehabilitation in 2038. I mean, this is, truthfully, as I said, this should have been done by now, right? This is really something that has been needed in this region for the last 25 or 30 years. And so waiting any longer doesn't help. And yes, it takes a long time. And yes, we would like to deliver this project sooner, and we will do our best to deliver this project sooner. But this is a major, not 10-year, not 20-year, but 100-year project. Mm-hmm. And they take a significant amount of time to build. So thankfully, we have started, and we are not going to stop until we get this completed. And the funding that we announced on Monday gives us the capacity to do that.
Now, during this project, will people be able to, commuters, for instance, both in cars and transit passengers, will they be able to see the work or maybe be impacted from it during the construction?
Yeah. First of all, they're not impacted from it, which is we designed this project very carefully with the federal government so that it runs essentially as a detour to the existing tunnel while the existing tunnel is still in service. So there is no impact on service. That was the first rule, essentially, of doing this project, right? Because you can't make the mass transit system any worse right now, given that it is so tightly controlled and so congested already. The second thing is, I wish we could show, or you could see more of the work as it was going on. Most of it is underground, right? We will, make an enormous effort to show that work on video, on webcams, and things of that nature, so that the public gets a sense of it. But part of the issue, frankly, with why this hasn't been replaced yet is that it's a tunnel, and so much of it is underground that people don't really see it, even when you're in it. I mean, I'm in that tunnel. I ride through it for work and literally to get back and forth to work, but also for my work 4 or 5 times a week. And you don't see it when you're inside it. It's dark, right? So to see the condition of it, is a very difficult thing. But we're going to show it, right? We're going to show it to people, and we're going to show the urgency of it over and over and over and over, and show the progress of it over and over and over.
And we look forward to it. Gateway Development Commission Chief of Public Outreach, Stephen Sigmund, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. And folks can learn more information at gatewayprogram.org. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, good. Like I said, that project's been, was one of the first things I covered when I started on air.
I remember originally named the ARC project, and now it's the Gateway. So there's a lot of good things ahead for commuters in New Jersey.
Absolutely, long overdue. Also, we got more good things ahead for you right here on the New Jersey Morning Show. We'll be right back.